Should I start again?
No, I like it. That's the whole point of what we're doing.
Okay, so we're bringing back our podcast, Walk the Talk, after a bit of a hiatus. So the New Look podcast will welcome its first guest shortly, and it will begin with some warm-up questions that we will ask every guest. And we thought, well, it's only fair to ask questions of our guests that we're prepared to answer ourselves. So here we go. Nikki, are you ready for it?
I am ready, Sarah. Let's do this.
Excellent stuff. Okay. So, one word to describe how you're feeling right now.
I'm delighted to say, because this is a lesser spotted feeling for me these days, but I am feeling energized. That is my word of the moment. How about you?
Well, I'm feeling those vibes, so I'm going to take energized, but I'm going to also supplement it with, a little bit excited, nervous energy. Doing this, it feels kind of weird to do this sort of podcast between the two of us, but I'm excited about bringing back Walk the Talk. So that's my 2 words ramble.
Quite a few words actually in there, Sarah.
Turns out we're not great podcast guests. Better at the hosting role. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, you know how we love those scales, where 10 is high. How would you rate your stress levels and your joy levels?
I am going to put my stress today at a 4. So relatively low. In truth, I could probably do with putting my foot on the gas a little bit more and increasing my stress levels. So that is one for tomorrow. I find if I'm not putting enough pressure on myself, actually, I'm not performing at my best. So I'm going to up that by a point tomorrow. That's my commitment to you. And joy is pretty high today. I'm going to say an 8. What about you? Where are you plotting today?
I think I'm probably around a 5 for stress. Yeah, I like you. I feel like that's sort of the optimum from a kind of a flow point of view. It's a sort of enough pressure, um, but yeah, not feeling overwhelmed by it. In terms of joy, yeah, I'm gonna say I'm gonna raise you slightly. I'm gonna go 8.5.
Oh, lovely. Nudging in there with an extra half a point.
All right. So, what are 3 of your daily well-being non-negotiables? So those things that you prioritize day to day, or perhaps week to week, to complete your stress cycle.
Oh, we love talking about well-being non-negotiables, don't we? Um, Mine change in truth depending on what is going on in my world. But the one, and I know that you're going to match this, but the one that's always there is movement. And for me, this is movement outside. I don't think that can be beaten for me. Even if the weather is not looking so great, I try and get outside for some movement, be that a walk, a jog, a bit of boot camp with some ladies in my local area for at least 20 to 30 minutes a day. So that would be number one. Um, Number two at the moment, I've got a 4-month-old puppy. So enjoying some playtime with Jude at least once a day. Although, let's be honest, it's several more times a day than just once, is another one of mine. And then thirdly, what would be my one at the moment? I think it is around sleep for me at the moment. I have things have been very busy. We've been away quite a lot with work. We've had some disrupted sleep patterns. So at the moment, I'm trying to get at least 8 hours sleep a night, ideally a little bit more, but I'll settle for 8 hours. How about you? What's on your list at the moment?
Yeah, well, very similar as you suggested. So number one, some kind of movement every morning, whether that's a walk, a jog, gym, or a stretch. I think if I can add other people into the mix, that brings other elements, the social element too. So yes. Second for me is around sleep as well. So it's early to bed, at least 5 times a week. I try to be in bed by sort of 9:30 to optimize my sleep window. And the third is perhaps going to be a new one for you. You might not have heard me say this, but it's intentional alone time.
Lovely.
Yes, I mean, the social stuff is super important to me, but I actually think I now need to prioritize alone time.
Interesting. Well, I wish you luck with that one. I know how busy your diary is.
Ah, okay, on to the next question. So, 3 values that feel most important to you right now.
Well, you know that we look at our values regularly. They form part of one of our favourite workshops. So I have these right at the tip of my tongue. They are wholehearted, belonging, and playfulness.
Oh, I love
How
that.
about yours, Sarah? I
Um,
should know them off by heart, really, shouldn't I?
well, the others who are listening and watching perhaps don't. So the first is connection. So that's connection to myself as well as to others, but also to sort of a deeper sense of purpose. The second is freedom. And I feel like they need explanation. So freedom to be myself, and to do the work that we want to do, in a way that works for us, which I appreciate is a real privilege. And the third is health, in a balanced way. As you know, I am really passionate about supporting my health, and most of my decisions are sort of made with that in mind. Okay, what have you most recently learned or relearned about leadership?
Or I am going to magpie a quote that you shared with me, which I believe you heard on one podcast or another, but I loved it. And that was about leadership being a team sport. There's lots that I love about that, but it's a great reminder to me that leadership is about teamwork. It's not just about one individual. It's about collaborating. It's about having each other's backs. And I like the idea of it being like a sport. So as playfulness is one of my values, I think playfulness is a nice lens actually to look at leadership and teamwork through a good reminder that a healthy dose of fun, play, experimentation is really important to high performing teams.
That
How
was
about you?
that was Simon Sinek, by the way.
Ah, Simon Sinek.
Yeah, for me, I had to really think about this, because there are lots of things that I'm constantly relearning or learning. But the one that really stood out for me, particularly from last week, is to let go of the need to be right.
Mm, that's a
And
hard one.
it is. um, and to, but it's been a real relief when I've sort of accepted that, and to come to every situation or conversation with an element of curiosity about the outcome. We talk about that, when we talk about sort of our courageous conversations, and knowing it doesn't need to be my idea or my thought or my contribution, that's the one that's progressed, and that every idea is it's similar to your teamwork one, that every idea is a springboard for another. What's important is that everyone feels involved, included, valued. So yeah, it's not dissimilar really to yours. But as soon as you sort of let go of that kind of tug of war, really, like, oh, I've got to be right. It's why? Who says you have to be right? It's quite a nice relief, actually.
I think that fits with your freedom value as well. It's quite freeing and liberating, isn't it?
Very freeing. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. This kind of sort of probably leads on from the last. But what's the greatest takeaway from our last workshop? So last week we were doing one around leadership.
Yeah, so we ran our Raise Your Human Game leadership program, and we met some incredible individuals. So that for me really is the greatest takeout. We talked about the importance of retaining your you-ness as a leader. We absolutely don't want to be training people as cookie cutter leaders. It's so important that individuals retain their authenticity, their genuineness, their you-ness. That is what is going to make them a human leader. And we want diversity of leaders out there in the workplace. So that would be mine. Retaining the you-ness of you is super important when it comes to creating workforces filled with human leaders. You are your own superpower.
Love that. So answering the question, it kind of leads on from what you've said, but also a conversation that we had last week, which sort of led us up to my last response about sort of letting go of the need to be right. What I took away from last week was the importance of humility and letting go of any ego, when it comes.
Don't let go of the ego. You want to keep the ego.
The ego, but you can let go of the ego. When it comes to sort of fostering trust and having the sort of greatest positive impact on those around you. I suppose doing what we do, there is a risk that I'm going to speak from but maybe that we can forget that, especially when the fear of maybe that imposter syndrome creeps in, which it easily can, along with that desire to be seen as credible or experts in what we do. You know, it's a fine balance and a reminder of the power of sort of vulnerability in our roles as facilitators. And actually, I think we saw that and we talked about it. It really, you do see a different sort of level of conversation when we are vulnerable as well.
I agree. Yeah, I love that answer.
Okay, so moving on to, we've got a few more to go. Best or worst bit of leadership advice that you've ever received?
Oh, this was hard when I was reflecting on these questions because I've been spoiled. I've had some incredible leaders and amazing guidance over the years, which I am deeply grateful for. But something that kept sort of jumping in when I was considering this question was the concept that you can't please all the people all of the time. And maybe sort of latching on to what you were talking about, letting go a little bit. I know for a long time as a people manager, as a leader in inverted commas, I wanted everybody in my team to be happy. I wanted to get everything right for everyone. The ultimate people pleasing behavior. And my leader at the time reminded me that all we can do is make our best decisions from a place of good intentions, from a place of integrity. If we have them from a place of our organizational values, they can be really helpful in helping us make decisions. And we make those decisions as right as we can, safe in the knowledge that because we are talking about human beings, all of whom are unique, we're probably going to disappoint people along the way. And that's okay, so long as we've grounded ourselves in integrity, humility, to pick up on your last word as well, and make the decisions in good faith. I found that really helpful over the years, and it has stopped me agonizing over the 5% of people who don't like decisions that have been made. Help me focus on moving forward more positively, and not sort of hanging on and catastrophizing to any disappointment that has inevitably been made along the way. So that is my answer to that one. How about you, Sarah?
Well, mine feels less kind of deep by comparison, but I think it's important. I'm going to go with sort of the worst advice that I've been given, which was around leaving your sort of personal stuff at the door when you come into the office.
Uh,
That
that
concept,
classic.
which thankfully I think most people don't believe in that anymore. But I think perhaps it's still there's still a sort of hangover from that. You know, it's just simply not possible to not bring our kind of personal lives into the workplace, and vice versa. Not to take kind of work home with us, but those lines are so blurred, aren't they? When many of us work from home now. So I think it is about bringing compassion, and also about getting to know the people that we work with on a personal level. That doesn't mean to say we have to be friends, but we can be friendly, and to recognize that we are all going through so many things, oftentimes alone, and that actually, you know, we can bring a bit of compassion and understanding, to our, you know, to the workplace, and in our roles as leaders. We have a big part to play, in order to give people that sense of belonging in the workplace. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think obviously, of course, we have to be intentional and thoughtful about how we show up if we have got, you know, when we've got things going on, and acknowledging that those emotions are going to impact us, being compassionate, and taking sort of appropriate action, and getting the support, asking for help. There we go.
I think that's an absolutely wonderful point. And if you don't sort of mind me bringing in a thought on that as well, and
Mm.
that is that I totally agree with you. It's getting harder and harder for us to separate out work and life. And there are people who work really hard to do that. So I know in the past I've got things wrong actually as a leader when I've been too inquisitive about perhaps what's going on outside of the workplace for some people. And not everybody wants to share everything about their personal lives as at work, and that's okay as well. It's meeting people where they are and allowing as much or as little of their personal world to come into the professional world. I think to your point, the important bit is creating that psychological safety, isn't it, as a leader, as a manager, that you're open to getting to know people on a personal as well as a professional basis.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, give an example. We were talking a lot about trust, recently, and give an example of when trust, was either what you grew that trust with one of your leaders, or it was broken, one or other.
Gosh, again, I've been spoiled, so um, I had to really sift through examples. I know that you've heard this one before. I think it always jumps out to me as a great example of trust building. It was in my early career. I was having a manager with my boss, and things had got overwhelming for me, and I burst into tears. I was embarrassed. I apologized, and my boss, my best, he was my best boss. My boss said to me, never apologize for crying. He said, it shows that you care. It shows that you're an emotional human being, and that's okay. We want emotions in this organization. And he just gave me permission to cry, which was an instant trust builder. So I'm forever grateful to that leader.
Yeah.
Mike Worley Birch, you know who you are.
Oh, well, I love that story. and I've got the counter one for that, sadly, which is why we do end up talking about sort of crying and the importance of crying, don't we, quite a lot
Yeah.
in workshops, because we're trying to do our bit to sort of destigmatize crying. But mine is around crying, and I break down. Well, there have been a couple of examples in my career, and essentially I felt shamed for crying in the office in front of my manager, especially when I was in a sort of a more senior role. And one manager described me as emotional as a result, and that has really stuck with me. But I'm sort of taking that and using that to fuel my sort of passion for kind of giving people, like your anecdote does, permission to cry,
Yeah.
and helping to sort of break down any stigma around it, knowing that it is a biological response, and it's cortisol actually leaving the body. It's a way to complete the stress response cycle. So it's a really important biological process. So if anyone listening sees someone crying, don't discourage them, encourage them. And if you also feel the urge to cry, don't resist it.
Yeah.
It won't last
It's
forever.
happening for a reason, isn't it? It's releasing the cortisol. And I read the other day, it's allowing the cortisol out the body, the stress hormone, and it's releasing oxytocin at the same time, which is a lovely neurochemical that helps us feel sort of soothed and calmed. So it's good for you.
And
Permission to
oxytocin
cry.
builds trust. It's the trust building hormone. So if you're a leader or a manager that gives permission to someone in your team to cry, you're also building trust in that process as well. Love that. Okay, we're coming to the final two questions. A book or podcast that we should all read or listen to?
I've got mine right here. Here's one I prepared earlier. It's not a leadership book. However, I do believe that all leaders and all humans would benefit from this. It's called The Dose Effect by TJ Power. Small habits to boost your brain chemistry. Hence why we keep talking about things like cortisol and oxytocin. D is for dopamine, O is for oxytocin, S is for serotonin, E is for endorphins. If we are naturally harnessing the power of these neurochemicals, we're going to give ourselves the best chance of feeling balanced and healthy and high performing. It's got quite big words in it, and it's got some models and pictures as well, so it's quite an easy read. It's a wonderful one. Can you tell I'm passionate about that one?
I can. And well, I think you listened to it and recommended it to me. He did a great podcast, didn't he?
Yes.
With Fern Cotton, was it?
Fern Cotton on Happy Place. Yeah.
So I love that. So I've added that book to my to read book. So my book, I've also got mine here, just by not by design. I'm not reading it though. I'm listening to it currently on an audiobook, and I'm loving it. So it's, oh yeah, because not everyone's watching. I've just been showing it to the camera. If you're listening, it is Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And actually, given that Nicky's just mentioned dose, there is a great chapter on dose, on all of those neurochemicals as well in this, and why they are so important in the workplace in terms of building trust, etc., and building high performance. So yes, I thoroughly recommend that. Okay, well, that does bring this to a close. Those are the 10 questions, or 9 questions. So thank you.
We got through it.
For tuning in. We did. Thanks, Nicky.
Thank you, Sarah.
Always a pleasure. One word to describe how you're feeling right now.
Relieved, I think. How about you?
Yes, relieved. Then I've got to edit it, so let's see what it looks like. But anyway, done, not perfect.
Oh, of course, always.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye bye.